50,000 years ago, Europe was a brutal, frozen landscape. The standard assumption for decades was that the early humans who navigated this ice age were frail, primitive scavengers, barely clinging to survival. Then came a massive discovery in March 1868. At the Cro Magnon rock shelter in southwestern France, geologist Louis Lartet uncovered a group of 5 skeletons that completely overturned those archaic assumptions. These were anatomically modern humans, but their physical build was entirely unexpected. They were towering, highly muscular individuals, with some males in Eastern Europe standing up to 6 foot 3 inches tall. Their cognitive hardware was equally formidable. They possessed a skull with a 1,600 cubic centimeter brain capacity, which is actually slightly larger than the modern human average today. Arriving in Europe from Western Asia, they stepped into an incredibly hostile environment, sharing the continent with entrenched Neanderthal populations and apex predators like cave hyenas and bears. Their imposing physical size and deep cognitive capacity formed a baseline. They used these traits to build a highly structured society that laid the direct groundwork for modern humanity. Their bones were massive and dense. A single collarbone could measure 7.5 inches across, providing immense mechanical leverage for the shoulder to throw heavy tools and weapons with extreme velocity. That brute strength was tested constantly, yet the fossil record shows they had an incredible capacity to survive catastrophic physical trauma, tens of thousands of years before the advent of medical technology. A prime example is the first female skeleton identified at the Cro Magnon site, featuring a massive, deep skull fracture that healed over time. Surviving this debilitating injury means she lived for years afterward. This requires deliberate communal care, being protected and fed while incapacitated. Their true evolutionary advantage was their collective willingness to protect and heal their wounded. This organized social structure extended to their domestic lives. Rather than constantly wandering, they established stable, meticulously zoned camps inside deep caverns, with designated sleeping and butchering areas. In open-air environments, they engineered large, heavily insulated huts. Their primary building materials were the giant skulls, bones, and thick pelts of woolly mammoths. To secure those heavy materials, they organized sophisticated mass game drives, efficiently cornering vast herds of heavy megafauna against cliff walls or into bodies of water for mass killings. They even began shaping other predators. Fossil evidence from Belgium and Germany reveals domesticated dogs deliberately buried alongside human companions. Constructing complex shelters and domesticating apex predators marks a profound cognitive shift. They were actively mastering their environment. As domestic lives stabilized, they built a macro society. They established continent-wide trade networks spanning over 120 miles for raw materials. These networks carried resources for survival, but also functioned as conduits for complex cultural and symbolic ideas. This cultural exchange fueled a rich artistic expression. They carved intricate Venus figurines, stone statuettes with exaggerated physical features, interpreted as central objects in fertility ceremonies. They also mastered two-dimensional art. In places like Chauvet Cave, they produced breathtaking, accurately shaded depictions of the native fauna they hunted. Their abstract thought extended into complex music. They crafted flutes, whistles, and drums from animal remains, confirming a deeply advanced intellectual life. Yet this high culture existed alongside extreme brutality. At Gough's Cave in England, archaeologists recovered human bodies meticulously butchered for marrow, and skull caps deliberately modified into drinking cups. This sharp duality, the capacity to carve a delicate bone flute and to cannibalize a rival, makes them deeply, complexly human. This harsh reality extended to their neighbors. For roughly 10,000 years, they shared the European continent with Neanderthals, fiercely competing for the same vital resources. In violent encounters, early modern humans held a distinct tactical advantage. They utilized ranged projectile weapons, like stone-tipped spear throwers, against Neanderthals' heavy, close-quarters thrusting spears. This coexistence eventually transitioned into intimate physical connection. The 40,000-year-old Oasi-1 fossil found in Romania provided the ultimate proof, challenging the pure replacement theory. This chart illustrates the genetic lineage of that specific specimen. Awase-1 contained a staggering 9% Neanderthal DNA, placing a direct Neanderthal ancestor just 4 to 6 generations back in its family tree. The boundary between distinct human groups was highly porous. Intimate interbreeding defined large parts of early human history. Eventually, the Neanderthals vanished from the fossil record. The Cro Magnons did not. This chart shows population estimates during the brutal last glacial maximum. While other hominid lines dropped to zero, anatomically modern human populations successfully navigated the deep freeze, multiplying to an estimated 70,000 individuals across the continent. As new agricultural populations arrived from the Near East during the Neolithic period, the established hunter-gatherers were absorbed and integrated into these incoming groups. Their deep genetic legacy was never erased. The DNA of these Ice Age survivors is actively carried by modern European populations right now. The resilience, fierce innovation, and adaptability of the Cro Magnons remains a living blueprint, still woven into our DNA today.